Welcome to Lead Her Chats with your host, Rajade Richmond. This is a no-fluff zone where big girl panties are required. Nothing but true-to-life conversations take place here. We are broadcasting from Bold Radio Station, and now, here is your host, Rajade.
Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of Leader Chats. I'm so excited to have my third guest on this show this month. And today we're going to be talking about something very personal and dear to me. And I think it's something that a lot of women, we struggle with and we deal with it in silence. And today we're going to be discussing grief and depression and how to conquer it. But before we get started on discussing that, I wanted to let you all know that no one on this show is a trained psychologist, and this should not be a substitute for professional help or medical treatment. The opinions on this show is tools that you can use going through your experiences, and to actually hear and take what you can from other people's experiences in order to help assist you moving forward with your life. So today my guest is Marcelle Bryant, also known as Marcelle Bryant, and I am so excited that she is here today discussing this because this is a personal topic, and oftentimes we don't want to talk about this and we don't want to share it, but I think it's something that needs to be shared for all women because sometimes we wear multiple hats, and as we wear multiple hats, we forget to take care of self, and sometimes that's in a form of denial. And with that being said is that we hinder ourselves from moving forward because we don't talk about it. And then without us talking about it, we are hurting other women who may be going through the same issues and the same problems. So when we come together and to talk about it, we help elevate one another and lift one another up. And so without further ado, without me going on and on and on, I want to introduce to you Marcelle Bryant. And Marcy, she's not only a guest on the show, she's also my sorority sister, and she's also a great friend of mine. And a couple of years ago, I met her at a time where she was going through some things, and I just wanted her today to share with you all, because today you would have never known what she went through, because today she's thriving, she's happy, she looks great, she's amazing, she's in great spirits, she's just a breath of fresh air. And so Marcy, I don't want to take your thunder, girl, so we're on the show, and I want you to talk a little bit about yourself first. Tell everyone who you are, what you do, your favorite color.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As Rajade stated, my name is Marcelle Bryant. A lot of people know me as Marcelle Bryant or Marcy B. I am a marketing and communication professional, and I am from and still reside in the Detroit area. A period of grief where I lost a lot of people I loved in a very short period of time. My mother battled terminal cancer for 6 years, the better part of 6 years. And during the time that my mother was ill, I lost a few other people, and other people around me got sick. I lost an aunt, probably in less than 6 months from the time that my mother passed. And then the month after that, my sorority sister passed. A college friend passed about a month or two after that. I lost another aunt. And I lost a very close friend that I'd known for over 15 years. So that was a lot of loss of people that I cared very much about that contributed to my life. And it seemed like every person's loss took a little bit from me. And I'm used to being a person that could just bounce back and pick up the pieces, but it seems like before I could do that, something else was happening, and I was losing somewhere else or in someone else. And so it just took a while to bounce back, and I finally had to admit that life wasn't perfect. I was unhappy. I was depressed, and I had to address it and deal with it, and now I'm better.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Now, you mentioned a lot in just a couple minutes. I haven't lost a parent. It was like to lose someone, and I've heard you mention before that your mother was like your best friend.
Yeah, she was. She wasn't like my best friend. She was my absolute best friend in the world. So losing her felt like losing three people, my mother, my best friend, and by the time she passed, she was very childlike because of her illness. So it felt like losing a daughter as well.
Mm. So I mean, for those, excuse me, for those who are on the call right now and they may have lost a family member or someone who they consider to be as close, like you said, absolute best friend, what advice do you have for them tonight in dealing with this process of grief and depression?
I think that there's two stages of grief. If you are a caregiver and you're caring for a loved one who is terminally ill, during the process of caring for that person, you're also grieving the process of looking forward, not necessarily in a positive way, but knowing that a time is coming where your loved one is going to perish. And so that's a grief that comes with anxiety. And then there's after the fact, which is the person has passed and you're dealing with the reality of this situation. I think if you know in advance that you're dealing with a loved one who may not be here for much longer, the best thing that you can do is stay positive, the best that you can for yourself and them. And also enjoy the moments that you have, even though sometimes it can be difficult to care for a terminally ill loved one. Upon reflection, those are probably some of the most intimate and personal moments that you will have. And they are great memories that will hold you through those difficult moments that are sure to come after the person's passing. If the person has already passed, I think that you need to focus on still all the memories that you created. Definitely don't hold any regrets about anything because what's done is done. The only thing that you can do is forgive yourself and that person and move forward with peace and love. Do things that that person enjoyed or things that you enjoyed with that person. For instance, my mother used to like to go get pedicures with me. And so now I do it sometimes with my brother's fiance. I still do that as girl time with me and another woman that's important to me, just like my mother did it with me. I think it's important for you to find other people whom you love that you can enjoy some of those things with and make sure that you share those memories if you have mutual people that knew and loved that person, that you continue to uplift their memory.
Right, absolutely. You mentioned about dealing with anxiety and oftentimes, you mentioned in the beginning, if you're about to lose someone, the best thing you could do is to love them and appreciate that time and cherish that time. But sometimes, death happens all of a sudden and the person is completely blindsided by it. We hear situations oftentimes where a parent or a friend or a family member is ill and they don't tell the family and no one ever knew the person was sick until, death, came about. And so for those who, are grieving and they're not, or even going through anxiety and they're not even sure what they're going through, what are some signs of anxiety and depression that you've experienced?
There are very small things that would trigger hurt and grief for me. For instance, my mother loved cinnamon Altoids, and one day in the middle of a meeting with my boss, he pulled out a box of cinnamon Altoids and asked me if I wanted one, and I started crying right in the middle of the meeting, and I had to take a moment to gather myself. And in that moment, I realized grief is not something that is easily controlled, but it's manageable. So when you have those moments, you just have to take your moment, grieve, collect yourself, and then get back to smiling. My mother didn't like it a lot when I cried when I was around her in those moments. But I did promise her that I would take my moments when I needed them and get back to smiling. It's very difficult some days, but it's something that I've endeavored to do, and it's helped me.
Absolutely. I think I love the point about, just smiling, just, doing things, forcing yourself to try to, move forward and be happy. I think that's very important. And I think sometimes we get stuck. We want to relive the past. And it's not to say, not to remember the good times and the memories and things like that. But I think sometimes those good memories can trigger, like you said, that anxiety, that grief, and it's out of your control.
Absolutely. The serenity prayer is something that I say as often as I need to.
And what is the
God
Serenity
granted,
Spirit for those who don't know it?
for those who don't know it, and this is not the entire thing, but this is the most popular part. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, whew, this is a lot. Like, just, just talking about it, just thinking about how do you move forward. And for me, the grief process, when it comes to, for me personally, when it comes to death, I have been, um, I'm detached emotionally. It's not to say that I don't care, but it's hard for me, I'm not sure if it's because I haven't grieved someone that has been that close to me that I consider a best friend or a close family member. Like, I haven't been to that particular point yet, but I do have experience with depression, and that's just, when we're depressed. I know for me, I was in denial for the longest. I didn't want to admit it. Some of the signs that I noticed, for those of you who are listening, was that I had a bad attitude. I didn't want to deal with anybody. I didn't want to go anywhere. I kind of wanted to hide out. I wanted to stay in pajamas all day. Not too much of that has changed, but I do stuff like I'm not in the bed. I'm still in my pajamas now, but I'm not in the bed 24/7 now. I'm doing things actively. I was eating bad. I didn't want to work out. I didn't care how I looked. I didn't care. I wouldn't comb my hair. I would just throw water in it, put in the bun, no brush, no comb, nothing. And it would just get knotted up. And I just really didn't care. So I started noticing, like, okay, wait a minute. One day I just had the epiphany, like, what is going on? Like, and so, when you start letting yourself go and you just start having this nonchalant attitude, sometimes I think we need to stop and reevaluate, why are we feeling this way? And for me, I had to do that. And when I did that, I came to the realization, like, oh my goodness, I'm depressed. But not always can we come to the realization of our own that something is wrong with us, on a mental level, because no one wants to say, hey, I have a mental issue going on right now. I'm dealing with some things mentally. I mean, because nobody wants nobody looking at them crazy or questioning their judgment and things of that nature. But sometimes we have to humble ourselves and recognize when there's a problem that it needs to be addressed. And I think that's why oftentimes people are led to suicide, because they don't have an outlet in which they can talk about grief and depression, or they're unsure of what they're going through. They can't comprehend the emotions that they're feeling. And so that was another reason why I wanted to talk about this, because we just had Suicide Awareness Month and Depression Month. And I definitely wanted to touch on this topic to kind of give listeners a real life perspective on it, because we see people on TV talking about their anxiety and depression and grief, and then we hear about it, but we never really can relate sometimes, because we're not getting personal. A lot of it's for ratings, and this show is not about ratings. It's about authenticity and transparency on helping you, giving you the results and the answers that you deserve to have to a problem you may be experiencing right now. And today the topic is grief and depression. So, if you're unsure, but if people are, and then also people, if you have friends and family in your corner when you're going through something, you may not realize what you're going through, but your friends and family will tell you. And if everyone is kind of saying the same thing, then you need to stop in your tracks and look at yourself. And I know sometimes it's hard because you don't want to admit for other people. I know for me, I didn't want to admit that there was a problem, but when just random people would mention certain things to me, it was like the same thing over and over again, but it was just a different person at a different time. And that's what kind of made me snap out of my funk to say, okay, I need to get some professional help. And for me, therapy was the answer, because I couldn't work through the issues on my own, and I didn't trust anyone close to me to kind of help guide me. So therapy was the best thing for me. Marcy, you talked about how you had to get professional help as well. Can you dispel some of the myths about associated with therapy? Because especially in the African American community, we think it's an
Sure,
issue to get help. And I just want us to talk about that for a moment.
sure. So I did decide to get some professional help, and I got the help of a counselor in my local area. She was a woman who I felt very comfortable speaking with. She wasn't something that was very formal, even though I went inside of an office. Um, but talking to her just felt like talking to one of my girlfriends about the things that I needed to. But the response that I got was not typical of my girlfriend. I think it would really help me. For instance, I was having trouble sleeping. So she gave me ideas about the things that I needed to change in my diet. For instance, bananas have a lot of potassium. And she talked about potassium being one of the things that helps you sleep. She also talked about being able to dream again. And when you have dreams, even though those dreams can be vivid, when they start back, because I hadn't been having dreams for a while, I was having trouble sleeping. She was saying that when you're having dreams is actually a sign of actually being in your REM sleep, your deepest. And so I was actually able to see signs of when my condition was improving. Adversely, she was able to help me pinpoint moments when I was losing it and when I was about to lose it. Through my grief and anxiety, I started realizing that I was getting short tempered, and there were certain things that would trigger me and would anger me. And I was feeling like for the first time in my life that I was about to go into a rage, an uncontrollable rage. It was a very unfamiliar and uncomfortable feeling for me to feel like I just had no emotional control. And she gave me ideas like writing in my journal, keeping a journal with me, writing down the triggers of what upsets me, counting, thinking about consequences, thinking about how my responses can hurt people that I love. Things like that help me figure out how I know something is wrong, what I can do to fix it, and how I know I'm getting better.
Hmm. And I think that's good. I think the one of the things that I like that I'm a proponent on is writing down things. Sometimes if we don't have anyone to talk to, I truly believe writing in itself is therapy. Just it doesn't even have to be complete grammar sentence. Just write down incomplete thoughts just to get it out of your head, so you're not constantly laboring over it and dwelling on it. I think just getting out your emotions, how you feel. If you're angry, you want to lash out and you don't want to go to jail. Lash out on some paper. you
I
know.
agree with that. I think one of the biggest deals, the biggest breakthrough moments was me actually accepting the place that I was in. For so long, everyone knew me as being this bubbly person, always positive about everything. And after so much loss, I could not be that person and be authentically me in that moment. And so I noticed myself backing away from people and being very reclusive because whenever I was out or even among social media, if I would make posts or people would see me, people would literally ask me to smile. But people don't consider sometimes you just don't feel like smiling. I smile all the time these days because that's where I am, but people will be so concerned about their personal comfort that they will want you to be being authentic. And I think it's important that you be honest with yourself about where you are in life, regardless of who doesn't understand. You can't fix it until you accept it.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part with dealing with this process is number one, accepting it, accepting where you are, and it's okay to go through these emotions and feelings and be in these phases. I think sometimes we associate negativity with the grieving process, and if we, depressed because we are grieving, it's a negative connotation associated with it. So sometimes we don't even want to admit that we're in this stage or we're feeling these type of emotions. But like you said, it's important to understand where you are, number one, and to not try to allow someone else to mold you into a different phase just for their level of comfort. If you're grieving, you don't feel like smiling, then don't smile. It's not your responsibility to cater to someone else's emotions when you're trying to cater to yourself. And I think sometimes people don't even look at it from that perspective. So I'm actually glad that you brought that up because sometimes people look at grieving as one, as it's a two-sided scenario, but it's not. So I'm really, really, yeah, I'm really excited that you talked about that.
It's important to surround yourself with the right people. Take time for yourself.
Yeah, surrounding herself with the right people is also good, but sometimes it's hard. And another option that we didn't discuss that I think I did when I was in therapy, they placed me in group therapy sessions, and I think that was good to kind of talk to other people and hear, the things that they went through, because then you hear stories and you start realizing, we all go through things and life is not over. It's just about how do we deal with them. What tools do I need to deal with this phase of life right now? And sometimes I think when we go through something so traumatic and, something that breaks our heart, we think, we lose hope. We lose faith in the world, because we, like you say, I'm pretty much an optimistic person. You're a bubbly person. And when something like that happens and it's like a series of negative, series of bad things happening, you're like, what in the world is going on? What am I doing wrong? What did I do to deserve this? What's going on with the world? And I definitely can relate to that, especially with the series when me having my daughter early, and then she had to be in the NICU, then I got sick, and then kidney failure. And it just, for me, it just felt like the world was ending. Like the world was crumbling down on me, and it that kind of led me into feeling a little bit of depression. Because it's like, why? What's going on? And for the longest, I denied it. Like I said, I stayed in my pajamas. I hid out in the room, and when I did go out, it was just to go to the hospital to see my daughter. I would come home. I wasn't really eating just because I was not happy with life, and I wouldn't admit that something was wrong. I was trying to be the strong person for my daughter. I was trying to be the strong person for my husband, but I forgot about myself in the grand scheme of things. And, like I said, like you said, small little things, like I would notice that I would get short tempered. Somebody said something to me, especially if it came about my daughter. I saw myself going from 0 to 100 real quick, sometimes 1,000. And so I recognized, like, oh, snap, I need to get some help before I kill somebody for real. Just, like monitoring your thoughts, because I would have thoughts like, seriously, like if someone say something like this, they're going to be out in Lake Michigan somewhere. And that's real. Like it was that serious. And for me, I think I was going through PTSD as well. But it was never diagnosed. But I do feel like I was going through that, with the birth of my child, and, just going through those emotions. I think it's very important to listen to yourself. Listen, sometimes it's hard to want to sit, analyze yourself, but sometimes I think we need to take a pause, especially when you're not doing your normal routine. If you're not smiling like you used to, if you're not interacting with people you used to interact with, on a normal basis, then you need to kind of, like you said, pull out that pen and paper, start writing down what's triggering you, what events happen, and how did you feel around those events. And usually when you do that, you can identify what is going on. And then, sometimes it's not, you can't solve everything on your own. You may need some additional help moving forward. And there's nothing wrong with getting that additional help. There's plenty of resources out there that's free that you can utilize in your areas, especially all over the U.S. It's just a matter of you admitting, number one, step one, admitting it, and then number two, actually seeking the help that you need.
I agree with that. I think that in terms of actually being diagnosed as anxiety, having anxiety or depression, it's definitely something that you should go and see a professional about, because there may be signs of it, but it may not be full on. So if you go, the sooner you go and talk with someone, the sooner you can get it addressed and get it remedied. But I think everyone is entitled to their own way of handling things, but I don't think that you can always handle it on your own. Of course, you always have that option, but it's not necessary when there are resources to help you figure it out when life becomes overwhelming. It's a reasonable option.
Absolutely. And I know we've been talking about this topic for a long time, and I know people are like, well, where are you guys now? And so, Mercy, we have a couple minutes left, and I just want you to talk about where you are in life right now and what's new for you.
All right. So I took 2 years off of work after my mother's passing, and I got back into the workforce. I started off with a job where I was not doing exactly what I wanted or making what I wanted, but it felt very good for me at the time, and I knew that I needed some time to get back into the workforce and figure everything out. It was a great experience, but it helped me prepare for my next opportunity, which I love. I'm currently a communication and training specialist in the automotive industry as my day job. And I also own a company called Marcelle Marketing Management, and I focus on content development as well as marketing strategy. And I also own a travel agency called Lux Travel. So life is great.
Awesome. I love it. I like how, you're moving forward. You sound great because I remember before I used to get on you like, Marcy, are you writing? Are you writing your poetry? And I'm so glad to see. I know the beginning of this year you did a poetry event, didn't you?
I did. It was at
Yes.
the very beginning of this year. It was about in June when I performed, but months before that, probably about February, I actually started sponsoring an event called Mahogany at the Museum, hosted by Joe Fulton Green. So that was where I got my interest and got excited again about it. And he gave me the opportunity to perform. It was a great thing getting back to my passion.
Right. And then speaking of which, and then you gained that happy weight, girl. You look awesome. I remember you was talking about how you couldn't keep any weight on you when I first met you. And then, this year, Lord, she can give Beyonce a run for her money. She got some hips on her, a small waist. So yeah, most definitely you look, happy. You mean you're always in good spirits no matter what the situation is. And that's just a testament to your growth because a lot of us, we give up on life. And for people to be able to see what you hear and see, for me, I'm blessed to even see your transition because I met you at your lowest. And then I meet you, I see you, how you've grown into now, and it's just been a great, just to see you grow from that, conquer, grief and depression, and to be able to talk about it. That's another victory because oftentimes we go through something terrible in our lives that we want to act like it didn't happen. So to be able to share your story and to share your growth, that's a testament to how you have conquered it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you always being a supportive friend. I remember trying to be a mentor and a coach for me, but I really couldn't even grasp everything that you were saying because I just wasn't in the best mental state to even be great in the way that you wanted me to be. But I think now that I'm in a better mental space, life is much better for both of us, and I'm able to work with you and a lot of other people and just be at my best mental capacity. And that's a great thing.
And I'm excited about that. Well, Marcy, we are out of time. I want to thank you for being on the show today, especially on short notice. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, you did mention your marketing company. So I want you to give our listeners that information. And I also want you, if you're open to, if people want to reach out to you on a personal level regarding this episode, how may they get in contact with you?
All right. You can reach out to me. marketing.com. That is my business. And if you're interested in talking more about marketing, you can contact me there. If you are interested in contacting me about grief or other personal things, you can reach me at Marcelle B Marketing on Twitter or Instagram.
All right. Well, Marcy, thank you. I really appreciate you, and we had you on the show. We're glad, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
No problem. You have the rest of your evening.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in. Hop on over to searchforherexistence.com and join in on the discussion. Also, tweet us at searchforherexist and tell us what you think about today's show. See you next week, all on Bold Radio Station.